Welcome to part 4 of my push button tutorial. So last time we created a little logic to figure out if we were looking at the button. So now we know which button we're looking at, and we can also ignore buttons that we are not looking at all, not facing. So let's take a look at how we can highlight them in a simple way. In my original video, I showed how to use a material which would draw an outline around the object. I'm not going to be doing that in this video. I'm going to be using a very simple and easy approach instead. So my button panel material in this case has a base color, and right now it's parameter. Let's name this something different than none. So let's just call this base, or just the color. It's not like we really want to change this, so I could just make this just a regular vector. But anyway, from the emissive color, I'm gonna press 3 and hold, and how do that? I press 3 and then click to get this up here, and then I'm gonna drag this into the emissive color. The emissive color is what can give you, if you give it some really high values, it can give you something like that lights up, like this, for example. So if we overdrive these above 1, it's gonna glow, basically. So this one, convert to a parameter and call this the highlight color, maybe, and save that. Okay. The interactable is the one that we should tell that this is the base class, and we can do a few things here. We can say the interactable does not know anything about anything getting highlighted or not, but that means that we will have to cast things constantly. So at this point here, I'm gonna make a design decision and say that our button should support that, or the interactable should support that. So it should support something like saying a highlight, and another one, de-highlight. So these two functions should be available in this interface. So since it's going to be our character or something else that tells it to highlight or not, we want to be able to send a message to that. So that means that you could say that, it's going to be the interactable. So on the class settings, we also want to add the interactable in here. We could also make a different interface and split this up. That might also be maybe more valid solution, but I'm just going to do it this way for now. So in here I can now type highlight, add event, highlight, and also one called event de-highlight. And for now I'm just going to be leaving these blank as it is. Okay, right. I wonder if this is gonna work. Okay, anyway. So instead of just printing out a string here, I'm gonna be calling highlight. So this is the method that we just created, and this is going to be an interactable. What we really want to happen here is that the button panel is going to have a highlight, because that's the one, the blueprint with the panel. So here I could also type highlight. So make sure to add event highlight. And this comes from our Interactable. So in this case, if you remember, I created these two. I don't really need them, but just to show that they're here. That's where they are accessible from. But since this one also inherits everything from Interactable, we have access to it also here. So from here on, we can now go ahead and highlight the panel. And the way to highlight a panel using this is to first make sure that we have a material. So inside the construction script, we should get access to the panel's material. Get dynamic. What the heck is it called? Create dynamic material instance for the panel. That's the way to do it. Okay, so hook this up here, and the basic material we're going to be using is the m underscore button panel, this one, and element 0 is the I want to check which index that is. So if you go into the button panel here, we can see it has two materials. It has the cap, which is 0, and then 1. So it's actually the one called 1 we want to alter here. So change this one to 1 or 0, depending on how you have this set up. And then you want to save this into a variable, promote to a variable, and call this panel material. Okay, so every time we want to change something on the material, we can just change it in here. So let's drag that one out, and from here on we can type in set vector parameter value, and the vector parameter value name is going to be the parameter value that we gave it inside the what is it here? We called it highlight color. So just copy that name or remember it, and switch back in here like that. And the value we're going to give it in here, let's say we want to make this bright, let's say bright, well, in my example I had it yellow, so I'm going to pick this yellow color, yellow color like that, and that's going to show this color, but I want to overdrive this value. So I want really to make a linear color. Make a linear color. What do I want to do? I want to let's see. Maybe I do want to make a linear color. See, I'm just gonna check how I did this because I can't remember how I did it. Okay, I think what seems to be reason is that I made a multiply. I wonder how I can get that. I'm just gonna get rid of some of that. Okay, so if I have my color in here, like I did before, and I type in multiply, okay, it's gonna reset my color anyway, so whatever. But here you can set the color. I keep forgetting. Gotta drag this one up here. Yeah. And here I can type in like 5, for example. That's pretty insane, a high value. And when I want to de-highlight this, I don't have anything calling this right now, so for now I'm just going to leave it. Let's see how it looks. So you can see now it's highlighting, but it's not de-highlighting still. But that's a quick way to implement something that highlights. And also we get a few errors here, saying something could not highlight. And the reason for that is that the highlight, the target here, the highlight interactable, might not always be set. Since this is running on every tick, you want to make sure that this is actually set to something before you call it. But we're going to get back to that in a moment. For now, let's see how we can de-highlight this. And let's see. Inside the button panel here, we have the panel material. We're just going to set some standard, some other value here. Let's give it the same and just give it a nice gray color. You want to have this match up whatever it was to begin with. I guess, yes. So let's go back to our third person character here and take a look at how we can control this a little bit better. To begin with, we have highlight interactable here. What we want to do really here is to well, we might not have anything once we get out here, or this might not be set, and this one is clear to begin well, since it's clear to begin with. So what we need to do is to create another variable to hold what is actually highlighted. So for now, what I'm going to do is actually to rename this one, because it's not really fitting for what I wanted here. So I'm going to call this the best interactable. Because right now, once we come in here, this is the best interactable. It's nothing. And it's once we come out here, it's the new best interactable. But since we might have had something on the previous run through the event tag, we need to check if we don't have anything when we come out of this, because in that case we need to deselect that one. And if it is already cleared, then we don't have access to call de-highlight. So that's hopefully clear why what I tried to say there. So for now let's assume that we create we want to create a copy of this. No, apparently not that way. New variable, and we're going to call this highlight. This one. So for now, let's just get rid of that. This stuff coming out from the completed here. So let's get this one, not this one. It's not going to be an array. Get this one. We're going to be using this in a moment here. Let's see. Yeah. Right. If we have a best interactable, we can do two things here. We can say is valid, or we can type is valid. This one is also a way to do it, but a more compact way is just to right click this one and say convert to a validated get. and this is a highly overlooked node or modifier to this node, because it allows us to check is this valid, or this best interactable, is this valid or not, in a very compact way. So make sure to be using this often. Alright, so if this is valid, then we want to set the highlight interactable to this. And then we want to also highlight this one. So call highlight on this one. Okay, so the point is really, once we come in here again, this best interactable might not be set. So that means that since we set it in this variable already, we now have access to this old value inside this variable here. So instead of just setting this one, because we want to do something else if this is already set, we can right click this one also and convert to a validated get, and then move this pin here, hold control and drag here, and say, okay, if this is valid, in that case, we want to start off by de-highlighting this one. But we only want to do this if the best interactable is different. So if it changed since the last pass it went through, then we want to de-highlight it, otherwise not. So we want to say if this is not equal to our best interactable, and we can switch these two around here, just make it a little bit cleaner, and then make a branch here. So this one is valid, and they're different, and we want to de-highlight it. Oops. Okay, and also once it's de-highlighted, we should actually make sure to set this to nothing, I guess. Yeah, and once that's done, we want to set check if we did have best interactable. If we did not, then we don't want to do anything further, because then we did make sure to de-highlight the previous one and everything is good to go. If we go back in here, you can see if it is not valid, then we just want to, that means that we don't have anything set from the previous run. Then we just want to check, do we have a new highlight now? In that case, we can just drag it up here and maybe clean it up a little bit like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that out. Something is lagging. I'm not entirely sure what that is. There's a bunch of warnings. I don't know what that was about. Okay, anyway. So as you can see now, it's de-highlighting just fine when we change the looking direction, and when we are looking away, nothing is getting highlighted. If we move away from it, they keep being de-highlighted. And that's basically the way I went ahead and created this setup for highlighting the button I'm looking at. So if I'm to create a new one in here, you can see that it's pretty easy to expand this with several buttons. Okay, so that's the first part of this interactable setup here. I think it's a good time to take a break. we covered all the stuff about setting up the interactables. I might want to clean this up a little bit, but basically it's set up as I want it to be. So you should have something at this point looking pretty similar to this one if you followed along. So a few materials, an interactable, a specialized class, which is the button, the old button, which we can actually at this point delete, and two static meshes, these two here. So that's what you should have at this point. So I hope you find this useful. In the next video we will start to take a look at how we can animate this thing. Yes, that's what we're gonna do. Alright, so until next time, bye bye.